Welcome to the Dynamics Compass podcast, where insights from experts will help Dynamics partners and users navigate their way through the rapidly evolving ecosystem. On this episode, we will talk about Copilot in Business Central. I'm your host, Rory de Goede, and today we're joined by AJ Ansari. AJ doesn't really need an introduction as you can't miss him on LinkedIn or any sizable Microsoft Dynamics related event. But for whoever's new to the community, AJ started his career in NAV back in 2007 and has been in the partner channel ever since. Today he holds several positions. He's the Chief Operating Officer at DSWi. He's the podcast host of Only BC Fans and author of the Only Copilot Fans blogpage and host of the Father and Daughter podcast that he does with his daughter, Anisa. Did I get that right, Anisa?
Yes, you did.
AJ is also the VP on the Americas Executive Board for the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. He's on the board of advisors for the BCNAVUG user group, and he's very passionate about both Business Central and Copilot. So we are going to dive into that combined subject matter today. But before we start, thank you for being here, AJ. And could you start with telling us a bit more about yourself, along with a fun fact?
Sure. Oh, by the way, Rory, could you do all of my introductions every time? This was fantastic. I think you did such a great job. You got all the pronunciations right. So I'm just going to count on you. I'll ask you anytime I'm going somewhere. I'd like the Rory introduction.
Sweet.
No, you I think said so much about me. I don't know that I have a lot to ask, a lot to add, but I will share a fun fact. So I grew up, for anybody who doesn't know, I grew up in Saudi Arabia in the 1990s. I'm in my 40s right now. And so if you lived in the Western European world or the United States, in the middle of the 1990s, you already had the internet. You would have services like CompuServe, or you would have, Prodigy and so on. And you would, every time you bought a modem, you would get a little CD and you could subscribe to the service and you could kind of use those services. You get email and a fairly rich internet experience. But if you lived in the Middle East, you could buy your modem and you could do little things, but there was no internet service provider. And we had started to see the rise of bulletin board systems, Rory. I don't know if BBSs were anything you got on, but a BBS was basically think like a low graphics, black and white type of screen or kind of ASCII characters, and people would
Yeah.
log in to a network and they with your modem and they would play some games and message other people on the bulletin boards. And in Saudi Arabia, there was like, a small community of about 5 or 7 bulletin board systems. So in 1995, I'm 15 years old. I've had a few modems and I start to get really interested in bulletin board systems. The short version of the story is I ended up starting my own. And at some point over a year later, some of the other providers that were also doing this, we would all keep in touch with each other. And one of them said, how about we do something about email? Email's taking off. Instead of just messaging people in our board, wouldn't it be cool if we could email everybody? There was no Hotmail or we at least certainly didn't know about Hotmail or Rocket Mail or any of those services. It's
Yeah.
like, how do we do this? He's like, well, I know of an uplink in the US, and we could make it so that I would connect over there and I would download our package of emails. And all of you would be in a hub and spoke type of setting. You would each have your own turn. You would connect to my bulletin board system. You would download your packages. And so it's not manual, actually. It's surprisingly automated for 1995, 1996.
Yeah.
I said, okay, let's do it. We used, I think, a protocol was called FidoNet, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm a little off. But we would be able to get emails 3 times a day, along with Usenet groups, which is how I learned wrestling was fake. And it was like Usenet groups were everything. It was like the internet forum to get any kind of information. And so, yeah, we started providing it. So I had a handful of customers on my bulletin board. It was me, my mom. I think I may have had 1 or 2 other customers. A few others were, I was a student. I didn't have a lot of money. There were a few other bulletin board service providers that were actually professionals. So they had more customers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my bulletin board system and others would connect to our uplink 3 times a day. We would get our automated package downloads. We had, I think, a 5 or 10 minute window to get our stuff. The main uplink would connect to their uplink in the US 2 or 3 times a day. And we had these obscure alphanumeric something at something.com email addresses. And we were for really lack of a better word, before there was an internet service provider, bringing email to people in Saudi Arabia. Now, how that changed is 1997, I went to college. A year later, I came back. I went to college in Turkey where we had internet. I came back to Saudi Arabia and found out none of the bulletin board systems were around. What happened? Turns out the government had decided they were going to start their own internet service provider. And one of the first things they did is kind of said,
Cut you
hey, guys,
off.
you can't do that. And this is not something we want people to be going. This is a more of a internet service provider is a different type of an offering, and you're not licensed for it. And so I
Hmm.
think very nicely told people, hey, you had a good fun ride. Now it's time to leave it to the big boys. But
But you
yeah,
were the pioneer.
yeah, I'm not Al Gore. I didn't invent the internet, but I had a little part in the history of internet in Saudi Arabia. How about that?
That's cool. That should be a Wikipedia page on itself.
Oh, I would love for it to be a Wikipedia page, right?
Oh, that's really cool. And I'm very glad that you're here today, AJ. We've had a few conversations already. They were both about Business Central, or they were about Copilot. So I thought let's talk about both in one conversation here, because on either side you've got a lot of knowledge to share. Um, I'll start with a clarifying question for the audience with Copilot, because I know Copilot you have them for all the modules in Dynamics. Is there a Copilot in BC and a Copilot for BC?
Oh, very good question. I like that, right? A very astute observation too. A lot of times when you have Copilot experience in a product, you're not paying extra for it. It's kind of made to automate or move certain functions along faster. For anybody in the room who's using a low code, no code solution like Power Automate, you may already be familiar. You can build your own Power Automate flows, or you can type to describe that flow and it will build it for you, right? That's a Copilot in Power Automate. You don't pay extra. It just speeds up the process, makes it more efficient, automates it, kind of creates a different approach of modality, a different modality of getting the thing you want done. So in Business Central, yes, Rory, there are copilots in BC. There is actually 8 right now. 7 of those are properly released. One is in preview. So the 7, they span the gamut of a bank account reconciliation copilot,
Yeah,
which does a really good job of kind of matching records even when they're not as easily discernible, right? You may have a payment for 5 or 6 invoices on different invoices are from different dates, but it will still look at and analyze and say, yeah, I understand what this is for. It can reason over it and do a good job. Or a sales line suggestion copilot. But there's a chat experience that's in beta. And there's
mhm,
another one that's in preview. If you have been on LinkedIn at all over the last few days, you may have seen the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central channel, and the product engineering team are heavily pushing for the sales order agent. Agents are kind of the new wave,
yeah,
right? It's an autonomous experience where when your customers reach out to you, they would be able to get a response back without a human having to do much. It will give you an opportunity as a human in the loop to verify what it's doing
yeah,
or affirm what it's doing, but it will do all the heavy lifting for you. So those are experiences in Business Central. There isn't a for Business Central. When you think about that, I want you to think of the extra experiences that you have to pay for
yeah,
with so I think Copilot for something is oftentimes there's a premium experience. Copilot for Power BI, you have to
yes,
have a certain type of an extra license or an extra fee. While there isn't one like that for BC, there is a robust capability within Copilot Studio to build your own Copilot agent experiences. So I spend a lot of time doing these for fun, doing these for workshops, doing these as sessions at conferences. So what I tend to often do is create these Copilot experiences, show people how to do it. So I'm teaching people to make your own Copilots for Business
yes,
Central. And that's kind of, I guess, one place that I love to evangelize, because the possibilities are endless. And my Copilots, the first time I showed something, it was just, oh, look, hey, I can touch Business Central and I can show you a list. And I think now those experiences have gotten more richer and deeper and more, some are conversational and some are autonomous in the ways that I can do things and I can show people. So there is, but it is a third party Copilot for experience. And I have it. There's some other people out there who have created their own experiences as well.
okay. With what you're saying, first, I didn't know that the agents came included. I thought that was another offering from Microsoft. Um, but with what you're saying, if there's only Copilot in BC, does that mean Copilot is always included if you've got the BC license?
Today it is. And all the features, let me put it this way, all the features that are there today are included. There could be a situation, or they could certainly be a new feature that's added in the future that Microsoft decides they're going to charge for, right? And why
Yeah,
shouldn't they? I think they look at things that would streamline processes and go, these are naturally part and parcel of the application, and let's allow the user to use it for free. There could be experiences like the sales order agent. It is in preview. It is possible there may be a fee, but today, if you have access to a preview, you're not paying for it. So maybe I should put it that way, the sales order agent. I'm not fully aware of whether it will be charged or not. There is a toolkit within Business Central. If you want to write AL code to build processes that can add a layer of artificial intelligence, you could use those. There you pay by tokens. So you pay by consumption or capacity rather than by paying a licensing fee for an experience. So a Business Central developer can utilize the Copilot experiences, the AI experiences, generative AI experiences rather,
yeah,
connect to a model and get some information, pass some data, bring it back. And what's really nice is that Microsoft's created a framework, or the BC team's created a framework where that experience looks and feels like the standard Copilot experiences. So the prompt box will look the same way like the native Copilot experiences in BC look like. So the user feels a consistency, a
yeah,
continuity when they're using that, right?
yeah,
And I think it makes a big difference. Those little details can make a very rich experience.
yeah. That does sound really appealing. So, how mature is Copilot for Business Central?
That's a very that's a good question. I would say, remember I told you there's 8 experiences today, 7 that are published and one that is that is in preview. This is not a screen share session, so I won't kind of bring that up. But anybody who wants to see that screenshot, just go to LinkedIn or Twitter or X, look for the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central handle, and you'll find about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had published a post that shows the Business Central Copilot experiences. It enumerates all of them. But I'll give some examples. There's one, the first one they came out with, and I think it was to show how a language model kind of can generate text based on a certain prompt. So it was called the item description Copilot, right? So you'd be able to give you a description of an item based on a picture.
Yeah,
It's mature in that it works exactly as it's supposed to. But if I'm being very candid, it probably addresses a very niche and small need. It's really not what the market was dying for and waiting for, but it kind of it showcased how it could be used. So when we were there, I would say it was very immature. It was just kind of showing, hey, we can do this too.
yeah,
And then, a couple of nice little features came in, like the sales line suggestion. Again, it is almost useful. It isn't perfect, but it was showing, hey, we're getting better. But with the bank reconciliation Copilot, for instance, Microsoft really hit on a pain point. That is one place where every customer that uses Business Central can actually benefit from. We've had simple manual bank reconciliations first for a very long time, then
yeah,
some automated matching, but the automated matching was not always perfect if the dates were a little bit off from where the bank recorded and so on. But the AI Copilot driven matching, fantastic. So it's a thing of beauty, right? Just kind of chef's kiss. And so that was the first mature experience. So I'd say experience by experience, they vary. There's one from a Microsoft MVP named Dimitri called the Numbering Series Copilot,
yeah,
and he won an award and a recognition for doing that. So it's a community-driven experience that Microsoft has accepted into the product, and that's a very mature experience for, again, a need or a problem. So there's a few like that. The conversational experience in BC is on the cusp of being mature. You can see the things it can do, but
yeah,
it is still in beta and preview. So by definition, it's evolving and improving. But when it's done, you can see how deep that would be. So I would say it's not the overall spectrum that I would kind of paint with a green, red, yellow light. I would look at the 8 features that are in there today and give them different levels. And I would say maybe 2 of them are mature, 2 or
yeah,
3 of them are mature. I think maybe 2 or 3 of them are in the yellow light kind of place. and a couple are what I would call demonstration features. It serves to establish that we are capable of doing it,
Hmm.
but where it's really not the selling point, right? It's a nice demo feature, but that's not what's going to bring you the customer, and that's not what the customers have been longing for. So we are clearly, the wheel has been pushed, and there's some momentum,
Yeah.
right? We're probably in second gear where
Yeah.
we're really fast, but that momentum now I would say is irreversible. We've got some momentum and some wind behind us.
Yeah. Two things I wanted to say. One, with your reference to the Microsoft Dynamics handles that were posted 2 to 3 weeks ago. This recording is the first week of December 2024 for whoever's watching this later. And the reason I asked this question, and you pointed this out just now, um, earlier this year, 2024, there was a lot of noise on Copilot for CE, Copilot for sales. You started hearing Copilot for finance as well, but not much about Business Central. But the last few months, I'm hearing more and more about Copilot features in Business Central. So that's why I asked, how mature is it? And no, you're rightly saying they're starting to show capability, and more is coming.
And that the sales order agent, which is not one of the eight that's in preview right now, I had an opportunity to see it, a little bit before it came out. And as an MVP, sometimes we get these opportunities, right? And I was impressed at how fully baked that cake was. When I still thought that would be hey, let me just, this is just like a demonstration experience where it will do a few things, but when you say, oh, can it do much more? No, that road hasn't been built, kind of stuff, right? We're building a highway. The on-ramp is there, but doesn't quite connect to the other end of the highway. I thought that's what it was going to be, but I was impressed by how far along it was. So I think that particular experience, even though it's not in general availability, that experience is probably the most complex experience. It's
Yeah,
an end-to-end agent that shows all the hallmarks of an agentic experience, something that's autonomous, that listens. It includes a human in the loop part, which is so important when you're working with business systems, right? You don't
yeah,
want Copilot to make decisions for you and finalize those decisions.
yeah,
You want it to show, hey, I think this should happen. Do you want to say yes or no or make changes? And I think they've really, stuck to that principle. And it is, yeah, I think just like Copilot for Finance and some of those other agents that Microsoft are creating, this is the direction in which we're heading. So
yeah.
definitely heading towards maturity, very, very fast.
All right. And in terms of the users, how are you finding the level of comprehension around Copilot from customers?
That is a place where I think we haven't hit maturity yet. And I think part of that is because of the market space that Business Central serves. When you look at AI as a technology, I think
Hmm.
we're seeing adoption from two different ends of the market. We're seeing adoption from the enterprise folks, where companies have a CIO, a vision, a budget, maybe even some data scientists or the money to afford somebody with a data scientist to create some very complex industry-based solutions, right?
Yeah,
AI for the manufacturing world, AI for the healthcare world, and they're spending big dollars. They're either getting amazing returns in your investment or failing spectacularly, but they have the money to do those things. We're seeing massive adoption from the other end, and that is a consumer end, where Rory, you and I, and a lot of people like us, we read the news, we hear about ChatGPT, or a couple of years ago, we started hearing about it. What do? We kind of go in, sign up, start asking questions, playing around, see what it can do. Maybe even made the silly mistake of uploading something that related to a business document, right?
yeah,
Before you like, oh, I shouldn't. Maybe it's going to train. Yeah, it's going to. So we do those things, and they're free. They're cheap. Everybody's got one, right?
yeah,
So you're seeing massive adoption there. But in that smaller side of the business, SMBs, maybe even the lower end of the mid market, you have to remember some of those are very small and flat organizations, and they have limited budgets. And unless a room of the house is on fire, they will not address uh, that, right?
uh,
So they're not into making investments; they're into fixing problems that make a company not be profitable.
yeah.
So AI might look nice, but they don't have a CTO, they don't have a CIO.
No
The
vision.
IT directors may not exist or is overworked and doesn't have time for these nice things. So sometimes they look at it and just go, we don't know how good or bad this is. Keep it out, keep it out. And they're pushing it out the door. They're fighting it, right? Just like swatting a fly away.
Yeah.
While at the same time, the users are bringing what I call BYO AI, bring your own AI, just like you used to have in college, bring your own beer,
Yeah.
right? Or then later it became bring your own device into the workforce where people started bringing phones. Now you have bring your own AI thing happening. So the company doesn't realize they have AI, but the users have like six different AI solutions because Bob is using ChatGPT and Tina's using Gemini and so on. And
Yeah.
it's just wild, wild west. So you're seeing that type of encroachment. But what's happening over the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months, I think the story is getting told over and over again, especially with Microsoft. I think Microsoft's been a pioneer
Hmm.
without having their own, without having their own large language model. They're a pioneer because they have taken and invested heavily into OpenAI
Yeah.
and their large language models and GPTs. And they have then taken that same GPT model that's running ChatGPT, but they've added more guardrails around it, right? They've secured it for the workplace.
Yeah.
They have put it in a business environment where you can quickly and easily get information about your files from OneDrive, your emails, things that you should have access to. They have made it so that there's enterprise data protection, so that your information is secure and encrypted. They've
Yeah.
made it sure that so that when you upload a file, even though you're in your own tenant, it's not going to train a public data model, right? So all those things. So as smaller business leaders and IT people hear about this, they can start to say, ah, maybe it's not so scary. It's not that. This is a more safe experience. It may not be a perfect experience, but it's a safe experience. And
Yeah.
even why I say it's not a perfect experience is because if you've done a bad job of securing your data with the right permissions and governance, people might end up getting access to things they shouldn't. It's not the tool that's at fault; it's the setups, right?
Yeah.
So I say all of that to say, we're first we saw a lot from over here, and we were all looking in awe, but we can't afford it because AI is this big, bad, mean, expensive tool like Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets that take you to the moon.
Yeah.
And then we saw, oh, AI is so simple, we can all do it, but your boss is swatting it away to where we're finally seeing some warmth and opening. But there's still, I think, a lack of understanding and truly how AI can benefit the organization. So oftentimes we say, if you're going to have a tool, if you're going to use a technology, there should be a real business case for it. And I don't think the average small business is able to articulate what that business case is. So
Yeah.
you could say Copilot for Microsoft 365, the productivity AI tool, where you can have easy answers to your emails or a summary of your email, or your Teams meetings get transcribed and you get a summary or recap and action items, or Word can kind of do things for you and so on. Those experiences become a useful entry point where
Yeah.
you say, my people can become more productive. I can add productivity. It's not the perfect solution for everybody, but and then I think the next step, and that's where we are. And I think we're going to see the next step, which is people are going to look at all these amazing experiences that Microsoft talked about at Ignite, where you can make your own agents, right? Some of the
Yeah.
tools are already there, but they've made it easy for the truly citizen user and developer to go and make their own agentic experiences very, very quickly and say, oh, we can build this, we can do this. Oh, look, you have all this information, you want to quickly access this, create an agent around it. You want to do this, I've got a solution for it. And wait, look, everything is very secure. So Microsoft's doing this great job that Google isn't. Google's doing it for consumers more than they are for businesses. If
Yeah.
Amazon and others are doing it, they're doing it for enterprise grade, but not for that big space. So this year, we'll see a continued growth and some maturity in that space. And I think that's really the marketplace where there's the endless opportunities, small budget AI projects,
Yeah.
easy to accomplish, smaller timelines. And partners like us and a lot of other ERP partners who serve that SMB space, I think are also going to be, to some extent, the partners that deliver these solutions because we don't have to be data scientists. We have to be smart business consultants and citizen developers
Yeah.
who understand and who can marry uh, this wonderful generative AI tool with your business systems in a new modality, a new way of talking to those systems and give you some good results. That's where we're heading. We're not quite there yet, but
Yeah.
I think you understand kind of we're coming at it this way, and we'll slowly meet in the middle for affordable but business meaningful solutions.
Yeah. Do because I understood exactly what you were saying with the bigger organizations, they have their CTOs, CIOs, they have a vision for what they want to do with AI. Do the small mid-sized organizations already have an idea like, oh, this is how we want to apply AI, or are they coming to organizations like yours to for advice with that?
I think right now they're seeing it's like a little bit of window shopping experience.
Okay.
They're getting so much noise out from social media channels like LinkedIn and
Yeah.
X and Ignite and those events like Ignite and partners talking about it and every podcast talking about it, that it's making them take notice. And I honestly believe that with so many different people having these conversations, one of two things happens. Either you tune it out because it's a lot of chatter, or invariably you hear something that strikes a nerve and you go, this is maybe what my organization can benefit with this tool. And
Yeah.
I think in Turkish there's a little word. I'm a polyglot. So in Turkish there's this thing that we say like bir ip yakalamak, which means like to catch a thread or to catch a rope. And I
Hmm.
think they're catching this one little thread of applicability to their business.
Yeah.
And I think as they get that, then that you start pulling and it starts to unravel. You see, oh, I can also do this. I can also do that. I was at a community summit roadshow in Houston yesterday, and I was doing a session on AI tools or AI capabilities, Copilot capabilities in Business Central. But
Yeah.
I left a small 5 to 10 minute at the end where I said, most of you people have never created an agent in Copilot Studio. I will show you how you can quickly connect something into Business Central, no code, simple. You can go back and actually use it. And as I was doing it, I stopped. We made something, and I said, "Do you think you can use it in your business?" Hands went up, and there was one person in the room said, "I'm actually doing it right now," right? Because it wasn't that the tool was so hard; they just hadn't seen a use case. So I think as
Yeah.
use cases are presenting themselves, they're catching on to one. The difference between the SMB market and the enterprise is that SMB has to listen to a use case. It's a latent need. They listen until the right use case comes, it clicks, and then they start using. At the enterprise level, somewhere in a boardroom, somebody's saying, how do we become more efficient? How do we become better? How do we achieve a competitive advantage? And at a strategic level, they're drawing out a plan and then building out an AI solution to meet that plan.
Yeah.
SMBs come at it the other way.
Okay. Okay. So one of the questions was going to be maturity on building the co-pilots, but that will be lagging as well compared to the larger organizations.
Ooh, actually, no.
No?
And that's where, yeah, no. Uh, so funny enough, I recorded another podcast. If you see one more podcast with me wearing this blue shirt, it was earlier this morning, and it was invariably a conversation around copilots, right?
Yeah.
That was for a summit. That's for the AI Copilot Summit, where I'm a part of the programming committee board.
Yeah,
And
cool.
so we were kind of talking about that event that's coming up in March in Torrey Pines, San Diego, California. And I made the reference that AI has been around since the 1950s, and it's been around and not in a taking over the world sentient AI way, but just slowly like machine learning applications and so on. And it was progressing, slowly growing, but just a very slow linear growth. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we have entered this exponential growth, kind of going parabolic if you're into stock trading, right? We're
Yeah.
going this way. So in shorter periods of time, we're seeing large leaps in capability. So I will use a real practical example. I got started playing with ChatGPT and all, I think about 2 years ago, January of 2023, maybe around that time.
Yeah.
Around late last year, November of 2023 or October 2023 is when I first started playing with Copilot Studio to make a Copilot, to make my own AI experience. I did my first workshop at Directions North America in March or April this year. And when I did that, my there were people who sat in the room, they were very curious, and I showed them some stuff, but I had to show a lot of these experiences, stitching knot by knot, loop by loop, and we'd have to do a lot of things. It worked, it was great, but you had to really sit and understand how this worked. We were not writing code then. It was still a
Yeah.
low-code tool.
Yeah.
But let's assume I wanted to get my Copilot to send an email. I would have to create a set of things like a question that would say, I want to send an email. The question is, what do you want the email to say? The user would write back, I wanted to say this. Who do you want to send it to? And then you would say, the person's email. And then it would ask the next question. And you would have to ask, you'd have to pre-plan for those questions in a topic. And you would have to flow the conversation along. And it was a manual type of process. And there were some AI capabilities, but In the little time span between then and about June or July, when I did another big workshop, functionality had already started to take off. But the big thing happened just about a month, 2 months ago, where now these tools have become so advanced that when I want to send an email, I just pick a connector. It's basically like
Mhm.
an API and a wrapper. And all I have to say is write a description. I don't have to actually plug field by field. I say, this connector is to send an email. And if I want it to be formatted, my emails to be in HTML format, send the emails in HTML format. I'm just typing it in English, right?
Yeah.
And then if there's a couple of fields, subject, this is where you enter the subject. This is where the body of the email goes. This is where attachments go and they're optional. I type descriptions and then I can start using it. So when I instruct my Copilot in a chat, send an email to Rory, may ask me what is Rory's email. And then it will just say, I've sent an email to Rory. It will automatically decide based on what I said. I may say, ask Rory to call me tomorrow at 3. It'll come up with a subject. It won't ask me, AJ, tell me what the subject is. It won't ask me what to type in the email body. I could ask it to show me, but otherwise it'll just do it. It will format in HTML. It will send it to you. And that same experience of getting an outbound email has advanced from where it could take 30 minutes to create that to I could show that in 5 minutes and you could be building it in the next 5. That
That's
is how
cool.
much, that is leaps and bounds, right? That is a real practical example of how far it's advanced. And I'm sure in the next 6 months to a year, we might find these advancing in ways that maybe we can't think about.
Yeah.
Uh, right? So ways that we can visualize, and maybe in a year, things that we don't know today will just seem so natural in 6 months to a year to 2 years. So I feel we're moving at this breakneck speed, and this is still a low code, no code tool. And I still don't have to be a data scientist.
Yeah.
There'll always be a limit to what we can accomplish with these types of tools, the low code, no code ones. But it's amazing how deeply enriching they enriched these are now.
Yeah. So in a year from now, or say 2 years from now, who's going to do most of the Copilot building? The partners of the customers or the end users themselves?
I love that question. And I'll tell you why I love that question. Because the answer is both. There's going to be different types of agents. There's going to be something that could be more of a conversational referential agent, where I was telling one of our senior consultants, he specializes in supply chain and the equipment rental industry for our
Hmm.
clients. I
Yeah.
was telling him, when you are working on a project, if you have a lot of customer documents from discovery and so on, you could actually create a quick agent for you and for our team to use. It would take you a few minutes, point them to those documents, and then you can start asking questions about what's in those documents. You will need very little training. I can truly see customers creating a lot of these personal agents, some for just your personal use, some for organizational use, and they won't need a partner for that. As partners, we will help them understand how and where to use it, how to get the best results out of this. And there's a lot of wealth of YouTube videos that are out there too, where they'll be able to guide along.
Yeah.
There is a place for partners to also play in this sandbox. It's not a zero-sum game. I think where the partners are going to be able to come in is when there's a larger solution that has to be architected, an agent that is capable of doing a lot of different things, an agent that can pull from your business central ERP system, maybe something from your CRM system, and maybe something from your knowledge base, a collection of things, and it has to reason over and know how these all relate and create a solution that an organization can not just use for reference, but use for decision making, for corporate goal, for strategic initiatives. That's where partners, I think, would be able to come, because we understand schemas of systems. We understand how business systems work. And Rory, I posit, I say, and I think others have said this too, is that in a few short years, if not in a period sooner than that, we may still have ERP systems and CRM systems, but the interface with which we interact with them on a daily basis, those
Copilot.
interfaces are going to go back. Yep, they're going to be behind. I think Satya said Copilot is the UI for AI, right?
Hmm.
But it's also your Copilot and your AI experiences are going to become, that is going to become the interface with which we interact with a wide variety of systems. Some people in order taking might be using that system. Maybe the accountant bookkeeper will be using that to issue out payments. But the CFO, other people in the organization won't go to the system and click here and click there and click there for a report. They will prompt it for you. You'll pick up your device and ask for it. right?
Mhm.
Um, one day we may just think it and it might happen. Who knows? It's a little scary, but and that last part's a pie in the sky, but everything before that, it can be done today. It's
Yeah.
just that we're not quite ready for it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
if I sound excited, I'm clearly excited about it. I don't think my customers learning about it or your customers or somebody else's customers learning about it should pose a threat to partners. If anything, them doing that means they are ready for these next level experiences. You should celebrate as a partner if you're interested in monetizing it, that your customers are now starting to build some of their own things because they are going to get to a point where they will need your help.
Yeah.
So it's great that they're getting in. You don't have to convince them or tell them why. At this point, they've seen the light. Let them do what they can. For the bigger stuff, you will be able to become a specialist in that.
Yeah. No, I love that. And your enthusiasm is really coming through here. So that's really good. Um, Personal opinion question. What are some of the Copilot use cases that you love the most in BC?
My personal favorite is bank reconciliation. I know it's such a. I tell people if I ever hop on a plane and somebody says what I do, I have a lot of fun explaining what I do. The other person maybe not so much, right? Explaining we are an ERP consultant or a business consultant is not the most fun thing. So it's by the same token, explaining why Bank Rec Copilot is so exciting. I think it may seem bland. But what I'm really excited about more than that is that sales order agent,
Yeah.
because it is the first time that door has been kicked wide open for an experience where when your user wants something from you about creating a quote or an order, I don't have to do all those things. I can see a situation where I am working on something else that is more higher value in my organization.
Hmm.
I just get alerted if I'm even though I might be the sales order taker, I get alerted when there is a customer request and the Copilot is saying, I got an email. It looks like they want a quote for these items.
Yeah.
Here's a quote I made. Do you want me to send it on to them? Here's the email I wrote. It's done all of that. And it's basically like hiring a new employee who you have given some instruction to. And you just say, I'm not ready for you to do it all by yourself. Come to me, show me your work. And you say, all right, sure, go and do it. And then it will come back later and say, they wrote back, they're ready to buy. Here's the order I made. Does this look good? Should I send it? And you say, yes. That can make such a big efficiency impact in an organization when your co-pilot is truly just being your personal assistant and doing it. It's not going to drive you out of a job, but it'll
No.
free you up to do more higher value things. It allows you to be the adult in the room
Yeah.
while somebody is doing maybe the boring and mundane tasks. And I feel that's what I'm really excited. It's not just that, but what that agent represents,
Yeah.
the opportunity that it represents for where we go from here, right? That door's been kicked wide open now. Microsoft can build some. At some upcoming conferences, I'll be doing an agent called the BCBECEE. It's called Agent BC. And Agent BC will be doing some variations of these agentic things where there will be some autonomous capability to it that we'll show. And I am not a data scientist. I'm not an AI expert. I'm just a guy who fell in love with this, found a tool that made it easy, and I kept learning. I learned from others, and I'm
Yeah.
showing others how to do this, right? If I can do it, trust me, anybody who really wants to can learn to do it. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people should get excited about, that anyone can learn this stuff. Like it's an equal playing field at the moment because it's all so new still. You're not If you're behind, you're not that far behind, even if you start today.
I could
Okay.
not agree more with that statement.
Yeah. So to a Dynamics decision maker, what would you tell them is the best way to get the team started on Copilot if they've had no exposure yet?
When you're saying a dynamics decision maker, are you thinking about a partner that is in the dynamics world, or are you talking
The
about
a
an end
cut
customer that's using?
Yeah, the customer that you were describing, actually, the customer that doesn't that has so far pushed it out so far, but have now realized like, okay, we should start looking at AI and Copilot.
Yeah.
Where should they start?
That's a very interesting question. I think the low-hanging fruit would be, and the easy, lazy answer would be to say, "Oh, go and start using these BC features in the BC Copilot features." But the reality is that is Copilot-y, but you're not actually doing anything to benefit from the AI. It's just a new feature, right? You're
Yeah.
start using a new feature, which is fancy, and you should. I think anytime there's some tool that allows you to do something quicker, faster, better, why not? You should do it. I think what I would tell them is start off first with a tool like Copilot for M365. Don't even think about Business Central.
Yeah.
Start off with these tools that help give you productivity gains, but also introduce you to some core concepts of how we communicate with a conversational AI agent today, and that is prompting.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Yeah.
like if you remember, I don't remember, I hear about it, I'm sure you've heard about it. Back in the day, typists, they were in high demand. Typing was a skill. And then when I was a child in the 1980s, I remember people would learn Lotus 123 spreadsheets and word processor. And if you
Mhm.
knew that, that was the skill, right? And that made you computer literate. You literally put on your CV or your resume that you know Microsoft Office or whatever application it was.
People still do that today.
Yeah, right. Yes, they do, right? And in some job markets, there's a need for that. We just live in the tech world, so this feels like it's laughable. But if you're not in the tech world, that is a skill. I absolutely should not be laughing at it. But I think prompting will become a skill. And if you are able to create a good prompt or understand what makes a good prompt, then you would be able to get more value and mileage out of whatever AI tools you use. So before you get into investing in a big AI solution, or even building your own AI solutions, start by understanding how do you talk to it. The beauty is you talk to it like a human, but the difference is sometimes in human communications, we stress being concise, which
Mhm.
is not one of my virtues sometimes. Right? It's like I used to get on my report cards, it always said, great student, but talks too much. And I'm sure your viewers have figured that out by now too. Uh, but in the AI realm, prompting, you could prompt with a few words, a few sentences, or a paragraph. It's not about how short it is. It is about how well you explain your intent. It is
Mhm.
all about if you wanted to do complex things, you have to explain it well. You
Yeah.
know, get water in a bucket. Short answer, get water from this faucet in this bucket and fill to this line. In some cases, maybe that much description is not needed, but the more complex your use case is, the better you have to describe it. The more you can describe it. If you say, if the water is too hot, make it cool, that might serve a very valuable purpose based on what you're trying to accomplish with those instructions. So learn how to prompt, understand those techniques. Prompt engineering is a real thing.
Mhm.
Just like selling is not an art, prompting is not an art. I think there's a little bit of a science and madness to it. Start with those types of solutions. Copilot for M365, use those productivity tools, understand how you can prompt better to get the most value.
Yeah.
You will see then that there is benefits, and you will then start to say, the light bulb will go off, and you'll say, can we do this with these tools? Can we do this for our organization? And then all you may need a partner to do is simply stand up a Copilot agent that can do these, but your prompting skills will help you get the most out of that experience. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we want to move towards. So I'd say start small. Crawl, walk, run has always been great advice, no matter what age you live in, right? So crawl, walk, and run. Start crawling. Don't wait for that big AI solution to come in. Don't say we don't have the money to build an AI solution, so we don't need one. Start small. Microsoft did a fantastic work trend index or work trend study, I think late last year.
Yeah.
If I recall the specifics, about 250 people were invited to participate, and they did this over a period of maybe 8 weeks. And at the end of 8 weeks, they went through a lot of questions and whatnot. And one interesting question that they highlighted was the pizza question, or free lunch question. Would you trade a free lunch if your employer gave you one once a week for a license of Copilot Studio? And for context, Copilot for M365. For context, it's $360 a year.
Yeah.
It's like $30 a month, right? It's publicly published pricing today.
Yeah.
So $30 a month. For $30 a month, would you rather get free lunch, or would you rather get a Copilot license? And they said, what about if you got two free lunches? What about if you got four free lunches? And overwhelmingly, people still preferred that tool because after they use it for 8 weeks, they don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
It probably gave them more time so they enjoyed their lunch a little bit more, right? It made them better, faster, meaner at their jobs. And I think sometimes those experiences can be that stepping stone. Once you realize it's a latent need, once you realize how important and valuable it is, then you won't want to go back.
Yeah, that's really good. And that last question was indeed for the dynamics decision maker at the customer to encourage their team. Do you recommend the same steps to that decision maker themselves, that they should play around with it as well, or should they just encourage their team to start playing around with it?
That's a very, very good question. Again, I think I'll rely a little bit on Turkish called ince detay, which means a very fine point that you've kind of touched on. In that the tool is the same for all people,
Hmm.
but the tool can be used differently by people with different roles to get different outcomes. The decision maker would probably use those Copilot for M365 tools a little bit differently.
Yeah,
Maybe they're not going into Excel and analyzing a big spreadsheet. That's not their job. The analysis is probably the job of a business analyst that's in your organization. Probably the CFO is tasking a business analyst or an accountant to do it. They won't be using the Excel one. But what they may want to do is when that big analysis sheet comes in with a big cover letter that they don't have the time to read, they might benefit from a feature that is summarize the email in Outlook, right? A
yeah,
chief executive or a chief decision maker, they don't have the time to read a 3-page letter. What happens usually is the longer the message, the longer the response time takes because it just gets put to the back burner. It's important, not urgent. But
yeah,
a summarize button would help them quickly see the important salient points, and they could either reply or again, they can draft a response with Copilot with just by putting a few words that they want it to say. It can come up with a response. They can make changes if they want to, or just say send. Quicker time to response, quicker time to understand. So their use case is different than that of an analyst. And
yeah.
somebody who's in the sales quoting department, they may use that to look at a request for proposal,
Hmm.
use the proposal template, use the information they have from a meeting, and quickly use Copilot to fill that information into a statement of work or kind of an RFP response or RFQ response.
Yeah,
Different use. So I would say everybody has a different need. So the decision maker should also look at it.
yeah,
Two things. One, don't get that tool without having a proper security and a kind of a data readiness governance type of assessment. Do it with a partner that can do it for you. Or at least if you don't have
okay,
a partner, you want to go it alone, you don't have the budget, use common sense or look at a tool called Microsoft Purview. It will help you along as well. The second thing is get some training. Get some training by YouTube videos if you can't afford a paid, if you can't afford a consultant to help you, or find a consultant that helps you. This is where partners like us, and there are many more that add value. It may seem like I'm just kind of tooting my own horn trying to get a service, but ultimately it's a tool. If you
hmm,
don't understand how to get the most out of that tool, then you are wasting your money. You don't get a return on your investment.
yeah,
And a little bit of time, learn it, then go forth and conquer.
yeah. Okay. So with the comment that you just made on the security piece, when you got the license of BC and it includes Copilot, you should still have someone assess if it's set up with the right
Ah,
restrictions.
well, see that's another fine detail. I was talking more about Copilot for Microsoft 365, the larger
Ah, okay.
experience. In
Okay.
BC, you should already have security set up. I mean,
Okay.
if everybody's a super user, you're being really lazy. For many reasons, you want to have security set up because otherwise, people can go look at general ledger entries and establish what your business financials look like or what people are getting paid. So for more than just Copilot, you should already have security in
Yes.
there. But
Okay.
yes, if you are going to be using certain things, you don't want your the salesperson to be going and playing with and posting bank reconciliations anymore that you want your purchaser to be
Yeah.
posting sales quotes. So for that reason, yes,
Yes.
having the right security is important. But I think if you do want to tie it to the Copilot scenario, I would say putting in Copilot just further reinforces the need for having security set up, but you
Yeah.
really should have had security set up in your system of record all along.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. And the previous question indeed was how to get started, with your answer was more play with the generic Microsoft 365, which is a great place to start. It's like I'm starting just with ChatGPT and just practicing with the prompts and already seeing like I'm getting very different results, but just based on the prompts. That's how people should start as well before going more specific with BC. and understanding the capabilities.
Can I give you a pearl of wisdom?
Sure.
Especially as it concerns ChatGPT. And I have a guilty pleasure. If you go to onlycopilotfans.com, I still need to work out a better template for that, by the way. But the articles have, I think, about 12 or so blog posts. There's one about I'm a bad Copilot advocate because I tell everybody to use Copilot, but I use ChatGPT. But then I explain
Yeah.
why, right? It's like I say I'm not monogamous, but I say monog AI-mus in that I use different solutions. And here's
Yeah.
why. I think Copilot, ChatGPT has made for a better, more, for whatever reason, a more captivating experience. And I
Mhm.
use that. But early on, I heard from someone, and I've really taken this to heart. If you're going to use ChatGPT, ask, don't tell. It's like use it to find information, use it to research information, use it for guidance, use it for tips, use it to all those things. Don't tell it stuff about your business, about your clients, anything proprietary,
Mhm.
because it doesn't provide enterprise data protection.
Yeah.
If you're in the Copilot for M365, it is okay to ask and to tell.
Okay.
But if you find that ChatGPT is giving you better outcomes and better results, more power to you. Use it. I'm not here to bash ChatGPT or Gemini or name your favorite tool, Cloud and Perplexity and so on. But if you're using any of those public tools, ask, don't tell. If you have to tell and it's about business information, then do
So,
yourself and your clients a favor and use the Copilot experience uh, for work, and that experience provides a
because it
enterprise data
guardrailed.
protection and security and so on.
Yeah. Thanks. That was a very good add-on that I wasn't gonna ask, but it's very good to know that piece of information. Thanks for that. And thanks for all the wisdom that you've shared today. There's a lot of information, a lot of wisdom here. Um, I've learned a lot, and where Copilot and the maturity of Copilot in BC, where it is at right now, but also the potential and where it's moving towards in the next year, 2 years. So thanks so much. I want to thank the people for watching this, and AJ, I'm sure we'll see each other on the event on a event next year, and we'll speak again, and I'll probably invite you again to speak on other topics because there's a lot of wisdom that you've got.
It would be
Thank you.
my pleasure. Thank you. This was quite the enjoyable experience.
All right. Take care, AJ. Thanks for watching this episode on the Dynamics Compass podcast. We decided to launch this podcast after having spoken to a lot of people in the community who seem to be looking for answers to the same questions. So then we decided, why don't we find experts in the market that have the answers, interview them, and then release that information for free to help everyone progress their Microsoft Dynamics journey. So we hope that you found this video very informative and helpful for you to continue your journey and keep moving forward. If you would like to hear about any other topics, please write to me on LinkedIn, email me, Rory at thegoodtalent.co, and we'd be happy to have a look. We'll look for the experts that have the answers. We'll interview them, and it will be freely available to you. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as well, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.